Welcome back to another episode of Profits Picks. We're now game two, round one, game two. So we'll go through each game today, and we'll look at a side and a total. And I'll still go over maybe see where the series are now if I see anything on a series bet, and then we'll go to player props. So we'll always start with the earliest game on the slate, and we'll go through them in order. So we'll start with Brooklyn and Toronto taking on each other. Opening Toronto Raptors minus 11, currently seeing 11 and a half, and total opening 226.5, and that has since dropped down to 225.5. Now I read a couple of stats for that first game that these teams will play. I mean, Raptors are one of the better defensive teams in the league, if not maybe the best. And Brooklyn, they've been playing faster. They want to run, they want to shoot a lot of threes, and that's resulted in a lot of overs. So we looked at Brooklyn versus competition, and if you hear me say that, when I say competition, it's usually versus 55% win teams or greater. So Brooklyn versus competition with a total between 218 and 232. It's went over 12 of the last 14 times, and it was over in that game one. With that said, I do believe that, like I said, Toronto's a good defensive team. They kind of let Brooklyn score at will, although the game wasn't in jeopardy. But I would look for Toronto to maybe not be so happy with the defense, even though they won by margin, and just look to hold them down a little bit more. Fred Van Fleet also made a lot of shots, I believe, so I don't expect for him to be on fire every game. Looking at the Raptors, when they're coming off an against the spread win, the under is 7-3. So I mean, the Nets aren't going to play too much defense. I think the Raptors are going to do a decent amount of scoring, but I just think the Raptors can hold down the Nets. So, personal opinion, I would lean more towards the under in this one. Lean with the line move towards under, and if I'm looking at a side, I would probably go. I mean, Brooklyn has shown. If you like Toronto, I think you take them early. You take them first half. I want to say going back to last year, that was probably a good angle on them or where they succeeded. But this Brooklyn team, they're not going to give up. They're feisty. They were down what I saw, what 20, 30 points. I look back up, they're down nine. So they're not going to give up. They didn't get the cover in this one. They kind of ran out of gas after the comeback. But I would put my money on Brooklyn, maybe trying to keep it a little close in this one. I mean, Toronto, at the end of the day, all they have to do is win. And if they're playing a defensive game, it's likely to be a little bit closer than the last time out. So we'll go Brooklyn Nets plus the 11.5. And then we'll go under. Right now, currently, I'm seeing 225.5. You can get 226s. So we'll go under 226. A few 226s out there. And if we look at player props, last time we went with Ibaka over 6.5 rebounds. That one did hit. He grabbed 7 rebounds in that game. Now the total for his rebounds is up to 7, and it's a little bit juiced. It was minus 6.5, or it was over 6.5, minus 115 last game. Now it's over 7, minus 125. I still would look that way. I mean, Ibaka's average 8 rebounds per game. I think is we can expect him to at least get 7 and get a push, and potentially get 8. So I'll go with Ibaka over those 7 rebounds. This one here with the this series odds, not very great. I mean, the books, they're showing us that they're expecting Toronto to win every single game. They're not expecting Brooklyn to win one. Toronto to sweep right now is minus 400. To win in five is plus 375. So that tells you they're not very high on Brooklyn. They don't expect Brooklyn to take one game, and there's no value in that sweep. If you think Brooklyn can still win, that Toronto in five looks like a good option at plus 375, because I definitely don't think they win more than one. But I mean, if I'm taking a future on the Raptors, it has to be Raptors to win the East at plus 300. I mean, you could have gotten better odds all throughout the year, but as it stands right now, you have the Bucks, who do not look so great. They've already lost the first game. You have the Celtics, who are now down Gordon Hayward, who's what 18 points per game for them. He's a big part of their team. And you have the Raptors still chugging along, feeling disrespected, ready to show the world. So if I'm playing a future for that one, it would just be the Raptors to win the East. And I will mention, I mean, I like to share info. A couple more. If you like the Raptors, I mean, they're 6-1, I think, against the spread as a double-digit spreads, and versus lesser competition, 45% win teams or less, they're 11-4 against the spread. So if you like the Raptors full game, those are some stats to support. If I like the Raptors, I would take them first half. And we'll move on to the next game. We have Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets. This one was a very good game. It's been good the past couple of times they've played. They played in the bubble before the playoffs, and it was an overtime game there. So should be a good series here. Line open Nuggets -4. Still seeing 4 out there. Total opening 218.5, and that one is dropping. Now, I mean, I just mentioned they played a great game, but man, are they going to get another 57-point performance out of Donovan Mitchell? He was kind of doing whatever he wanted. He was on fire. It's tough for me to see that. And they're still missing Bogdanovich, their second leading scorer. They're still missing Mike Conley, their point guard. So it has to be Donovan Mitchell. If it's not Donovan Mitchell, it has to be Clarkson. And I'm not quite sure that I see that same performance from those guys. Utah's 0-4 versus Denver this year. When these teams played, I mean, we said it was all Donovan Mitchell, right? Who did anything for the bench? I mean, Clarkson came in and did his thing, which we expect. But the bench shot 39%. The bench for Denver, a lot better, 54%. They can count on those guys to take some of the load off, and I just think it's too overwhelming, too much for Utah. You have to expect Mitchell to just kill every game, and they didn't even win. So, I mean, I would have to look towards Denver. Denver still without Gary Harris, still without Will Barton. But Utah, between the spread of +3 and +6, they're 1-5 against the spread this year. I don't trust them. We talked about this stat yesterday. Also, Jazz versus competition, 55% win team or greater, with a spread between 2 and 8 and a total less than 230. They're 0-8 straight up. They're 2-6 against the spread. I just don't see very much from Utah to like, other than Donovan Mitchell going up against Michael Porter Jr. because Michael Porter Jr. can't guard a soul. That's about the only thing to like if you're Utah for me. So it would have to be Denver here on the side. And as far as the total, I mean, like I said, they're missing a lot of scoring in Utah, missing their point guard. Looking at the Jazz when they're playing these good teams, competition, 55% win teams or greater, with a total between 220 and 212. The under is 13, 2, and 1, with an average total of 215, and it's gone under by 7.72 points per game. The Nuggets on the other side, they've been on an over streak. I think the Nuggets can pretty much, they will have success scoring in this game the same way they had success in game 1. I think Utah struggles a little bit more, but I would still lean towards the under. So I agree with the line move here. I don't think we see everything going in for Donovan Mitchell again. And I don't think we see the matchups that were so easy to exploit in game 1. I don't think we see them out there for game 2. So I'll go Denver Nuggets minus the 4 points, and I'll go under 217.5 on the total. If we're going to look at player props, I talked about them a little bit already, but we took Clarkson in the first game over 17.5 points, and he hit 18 points. So we won that one, and now his total is up to 18 points, minus 119. And if the Jazz have any chance, they are going to need something from Clarkson. So I think he can get that 18 points again. I think he can get 19, 20, whatever. Don't expect Donovan Mitchell to have 57. He needs that help. So I'll expect it to come from Clarkson. I would look at that prop. And if I wanted to look at anybody else, I would maybe look at Michael Porter Jr. I would go for his points under 16.5. And the reasoning is not because I don't like his offense. The reasoning is because I don't think he'll be on the floor as much as people expect. When Michael Porter Jr. was out there, especially late in the game, that's the guy that they were picking on. That's the guy who Donovan Mitchell wants to go at. People will score on him at will. So we'll go under 16.5 points for Michael Porter Jr. And if we're looking for a series bet in this one, I mean, we already said that we liked last show. We like Denver minus the 1.5 games. So I think we're already pretty solid right there where we stand right now. I don't think Utah wins more than 2 games. Denver in 5 is plus 250. Denver in 6 is plus 375. If you think Utah can maybe sneak, if you think they can maybe sneak a game, sneak 2 games, I mean, then you probably take that Denver in 6 because I do not think they win the series. I don't think they push it to 7. If you think that they can't even get 2 games, they just potentially maybe still won. Denver in 5 plus 250 looks nice, but that minus 1.5 games seems pretty solid if you have already taken it. So let's move on. We'll go to Philadelphia. Oh, I have one more prop on that one. Also, I'm not quite sure about Jokic. Um, I mean, Denver won, but he looked a little, I want to say scared or intimidated by Gobert. He didn't really want to go at him. And he was lucky his jumper was hitting because if it wasn't, it would have been pretty ugly for him, in my opinion. So I may take a look at Jokic's points under. I didn't get the number, but I may take a look at that. Next game, we have Philadelphia taking on the Boston Celtics. Celtics opening 5.5 point favorites down to 4.5 now. Total opening 215 and still sitting at 215. Now I understand the move for the spread. Boston has now lost what? Gordon Hayward. He will be out for 4 weeks. And I'll approach it from a total perspective first. Gordon Hayward, that's what he's not the greatest defender, but he gives you about what 18 points per game. And just looking at Boston playing competition, Boston playing 55% win teams or greater without Gordon Hayward, they've done well. They fared well against the spread. They're 7-1 against the spread. Average line was minus a half, winning by or covering by 5.75 points per game. But the under is 7-1. Average total was 214.7, going under by 12.44 points per game. I think they will miss that 18 points. I think it makes it easier for Philadelphia to guard them, makes them less versatile for Boston. And on the Philly side, Embiid, he said he has to do more. You can expect for him to have the ball a lot in this game. You can expect for him to be posting up, take advantage of his size. And in my opinion, if he's doing that every time down the floor, or even if him and Al Horford are taking turns or whatever the case may be, I mean, not saying Al Horford is that great of an offensive player, but if it's a lot of post-ups happening for Philadelphia, I would expect the clock to keep ticking. So I would lean more towards the under in this game if I'm playing the total. And for a side, I'm not really I'm not too comfortable laying the 4.5 without Hayward. I mean, granted, I know Boston can still win this game, but just down that extra piece that gives you 18 a game, and Philadelphia with their back on the wall, I'm not so sure. But at the end of the day, Philadelphia still has Brett Brown as their coach. One thing that I did not understand for the life of me, the last game, Philadelphia was in the bonus with a good amount of time left in that first quarter. Or not first quarter, but I think it was the second quarter. Good amount of time left in the quarter. Philadelphia in a penalty. And you take Embiid out. Why? Don't you want him to attack and get fouled? Granted, maybe you took him out because he was making what, one free throw, he was missing some free throws, but that's what you want. If you're in a penalty, you want your player in who's going to attack and get you to the free throw line and put pressure on the defense. He just seems like he doesn't understand talking about Brett Brown. But from a side perspective, I still would lean more towards Philadelphia here. Philadelphia can't keep it close in this game here. They might be just about toast. I think that they give it all they have, and if I had to play, not one that I love, I would play Philly plus the 4.5 points. If I'm looking at a series bet here, there's not much value in here unless you think Philly's going to win the series. I think Philly to win the series was plus 900 right now. But if you like Boston, you're kind of a little too late. Boston to win the East is plus 350, but I don't know how high I am on that without Gordon Hayward. So I might just sit that one out. From a player prop perspective, We looked at these two guys last time, and they didn't quite get there. Embiid over 3.5 assists plus 115, uh, and Josh Richardson over 2.5 assists. The thinking behind it is without Simmons, somebody has to create. Somebody's going to be having the ball in their hands. I think it's going to be Embiid for a majority of the game. So maybe he gets double teamed. Maybe he dishes some of them off. At plus money, plus 115, I'll take him over the 3.5 assists. Josh Richardson is pretty juiced at the 2.5, and he didn't get there last time. So I probably would just stick with Embiid for a player prop in that one. And we will go to the last game on the slate today, and that will be the Dallas Mavericks taking on the Los Angeles Clippers. Hopefully, Porzingis can stay in the game for an entire game. That was pretty weak. E. Jackson, technical fouls they're giving out. I mean, it's the playoffs, right? Let the guys play. Clippers opening up in this one as a 6-point favorite, still sitting at 6 out there. Total opening 231, and it has dropped a point to 230. And right when I'm talking about this one, I did see a stat, and I'm searching for it with my eyes right now, but I do remember, I don't see it here on the paper, but I do remember games so far in the bubble with the total of 230 or greater, they've gone under about, it was 63% of the time. And I could understand that. I mean, the Lions moved down a point. It's still sitting at 230. But the way I capped this game, I mean, granted, we saw a lot of points put up in that first half yesterday before third quarter came. They scored, 35 points, I believe, before Porzingis was kicked out or whatever. But Luka, he had 42 points in that game. He also had 11 turnovers. Luka was forced to do everything in this one, and he did a pretty decent job as far as offensively. Had their team in the game, had their team winning even for portions of it. But the Clippers, I think they came out good. They went up 18-2, and they took their foot off the gas. I think Dallas has their attention here. I think Luka has their attention. I think they know, even though he had 11 turnovers, he had 42 points last game. Even though Clippers won, I still don't think they're very happy with their performance. And I think this is a bad matchup. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's a bad matchup for the Mavericks, who are very perimeter dependent, to go up against a great perimeter defensive team. And I just see them struggling. I don't see Doncic having 42 again at all. Looking at the Clippers, off of a win, first competition, 55% win teams or greater. The under is 18-7, and that goes for about 72%. And that's the last 25 plays. It's gone under, and the last six in general, or the last six of those games, have all went under. Average total 226.5, going under by 12.33 points per game. And I can see Clippers just clamping down. I mean, that's the game plan. That's my cap for this one right here. The way that the game went last game, I don't think they're satisfied or happy. I think that they still bring that defensive effort. I like this one to stay under that 230. And then we'll go for a side. I mean, you probably can guess it already, but I'm not trusting the Dallas Mavericks. I know they kept it close, and they were almost there without Porzingis. With Porzingis, maybe they'll get it done. I don't see it. I don't think so. Clippers are 5-0 against the spread, their last 5 versus Dallas. Looking at Dallas, when they play 65% win teams or greater, those superior teams, not even just good teams, superior teams, and Dallas is playing with rest and a total less than 236. Their last 8 games, they're 0-8 against the spread. They're 0-8 straight up. Clippers with Kawhi and PG facing good teams, facing competition teams with a win percentage between 55 and 75%. And the Clippers are less than a double-digit favorite. They are 6-0 against the spread against that competition. I think, like I said, Mavericks have their attention. I don't think Clippers are satisfied with how they perform. I think it's going to be a rough night for Dallas. I like the Clippers minus the 6, and I like the under in this game. And if we're going to look at player props, we failed with this one last time. Luka under his point total was about what 29 or so last time. He scored 42. I mean, he had to do everything. He won't have so much of a load on his shoulders with Porzingis back for an entire game, hopefully. But total sitting at 30.5 minus 109. I think Clippers can hold him underneath that total. So I'll go Luka under 30.5 as the player prop. And series, I mean, we already talked about Clippers and Mavericks under 5.5 games for the series. And I mean, you know who I have winning this series. If we're gonna play a future now, it's just a matter of asking yourself, does Dallas win one game, or do they not win at all? Clippers in 4 is plus 150. Clippers in 5 is plus 200. I definitely don't think they win more than one. So I think there's value in both of those numbers. If I had to say, I would say Clippers. Clippers in 5 is probably the way I would go. Plus the 200. And that's gonna do it for this episode of Profits Picks. We went through all 4 of the games for today. Let's try to keep it going. Let's try to make some money, put some money in everybody's pocket, stay profitable, and let's continue to do it again tomorrow. We have a couple more days during the week. We do the show Monday through Friday. So let's continue to keep at it. Best of luck, everybody.